Welcome to Radical Self-Respect with Jared Mello. This is the place where I help people learn how to not take any BS, how to avoid being manipulated, and of course, how to practice radical self-respect. Now, most people find my channel because of a relationship with a borderline or a narcissistic person, and if that sounds like you, and you want help learning how to practice radical self-respect, please don't hesitate to reach out to me for a consultation. Now, on to today's video. It's going to be a meme breakdown. And this one's going to be a meme that I've seen a lot of women posting recently. And it goes like this. Half of you guys better pray that your daughters don't wind up with a guy like you. Now, there's a lot of different angles I can take with this thing here. And we're going to go into a few of them in this episode here. So, first and foremost, one, I don't really think it's a productive thing to say at all. It's really just women dunking on men, 50% of men to be exact, and there's no actionable items or specifics on why these guys should pray that their daughters don't wind up with a guy like them. So I just don't think it's a helpful or useful thing to say. It's just a dunking, and it makes women feel better about themselves to post it. Oh, yep, see? Half of you all better wish that your daughters don't wind up with a guy like you. So helpful, so productive. Now, a better question women could ask themselves is, why are they not attracting the other 50% of guys that maybe they would be happy that their daughters would wind up with a guy like them? That's a more productive question for them to ask themselves rather than dunking on 50% of guys. But what fun is that? What fun is it to not dunk, right? So that's why they do it. Makes them feel good, and it makes the solution outside of themselves. As long as it's 50% of the guys that are the problem, what don't you have to do? You're less likely to take a look at your side of the street and to see what you can be doing better and why you aren't attracting the kinds of dudes that you want. So that's one angle to play with this here. Another angle. So say a guy gets a little perturbed or bothered by this and says something about it. Then women have the built-in gaslighting response of, oh, you must be one of those guys that this meme is talking about. And what is that? That's really just a gotcha moment, a little gaslighting moment there, so that any guy who would dare to say something about this is going to be guilt-shamed and gaslighted. But I would say to those women also, imagine if a guy said something so general, like, oh, 50% of you women out there better hope that your sons don't wind up with a woman like you. And guess what? There are some women that would probably be a little bothered by it. But here's the thing, in both cases, there is a little bit of truth in it too, right? It's not completely wrong. Yeah, there are dudes that need to do better. And guess what? There's also women that need to do better too. So I can see some women saying, well, if a guy said that, I would agree. And say, sure, there are some. But we also both know there would also be women who are a little upset by that kind of generalization as well. Just as there will be some guys who are also upset by that generalization. And the rationale usually is, well, if it doesn't apply to you, why would you be upset? And I would say, well, it's just not a really helpful thing to say. If you're going to get into specifics, if you're going to get into why it's the case that 50% of dudes shouldn't want their daughters to be with a guy like them, okay, at least now you have something to work with. But even so, blaming the outside, blaming the other sex, I mean, there's no power in that. It's no power in that when a woman does it. There's no power in that when a man does it. All we can do is take care of our side of the street and work on ourselves and ask ourselves, why aren't we attracting the kinds of people that we want? It's really that simple. And that's where our power is when we keep it to our side of the street. What else? There's really nothing else we can do besides that part. And it's like it's more important to be the right person as opposed to finding the right person. That's my issue with the whole meme here, where when there's something so general with no specifics and it's just one gender dumping on the other, there's no help in that. There's really no help in that. It's not helpful, it's not useful, it's nothing. So it's like Kate Bush said in Running Up That Hill, the whole song is supposed to be about how if men and women could switch places, they would both realize that neither one of them has it as easy as the other may think. And I think that's true. I think there's struggles that women have, and there are struggles that dudes have. The struggles are different, absolutely different. They're not the same struggles, but they're certainly still struggles. And so when you see just one side dumping on 50% of the other side, I think to myself, well, that's someone that really does just like to blame someone else other than themselves and point the finger. And like they always say, when you point the finger, there's always four more pointing back at you. Which is why I would say the more productive thing, like I said, is focus on being the right person, taking a look at your side of the street, and ask yourself, why aren't you attracting the other 50% of the people that you may want? Now, I can already hear guys saying, well, women don't want 50% of guys, they only want the top whatever. And sure, maybe there is a little bit of truth in that too. There's truth in that too. But again, what's going to be helpful here? And whether you're a man or a woman, guess what? How you raise your kids are going to be a little more likely to be attracted to someone that kind of fits your dynamic. And this is especially true when it comes to narcissistic or borderline individuals or codependents or whatever. If one of your parents was narcissistic, they are basically grooming you to be attracted to narcissistic people as an adult. That happens all the time. It happened to me. It's happened to many people I know. And so this is why it's important to practice radical self-respect, to notice the red flags of narcissism before you dive head first, and God forbid before you have kids with someone like that, because you don't want the cycle to repeat. This is why it's important to know these things before you have kids. Once you have kids, then you got to deal with the situation as it's there. Then you got to do the best you can with what you got. But it's important to get this stuff because traumas, they go down through the families. There's generational traumas, and it comes down to people to put their foot down and to put an end to it. And of course, the relationship topic is very complicated. It's not simple, right? There's many different factors going on here that really need to be discussed. And that can be something that we can discuss at another time. Actually talking about what are some of the things those guys can be doing better. And then having a guy be able to say to a woman, what can some women maybe be doing better? Now, again, it's not always going to be easy to say this because, like I said, being the right person looking at our side of the street will always be a more productive thing. But when it comes to actual relationships with an individual, yeah, you got to be able to talk to one another and call each other out and have boundaries with one another without having a person be all up in their feelings because they were called out. This is just relationships 101. And as emotional maturity is what it really is. And a lot of people, they aren't able to handle it, unfortunately. But these are the things that two healthy, independent people, they got to work on. Part of radical self-respect is learning how to be happy and single. Learning how to be independent, because when we're trying to have relationships because we're lonely or from a place of emotional hunger or codependency or whatever, we're setting ourselves up for failure. But when we learn how to be happy and single, how to be independent, that's when we're best able to attract someone else, right? I think the most healthy individuals are people who have been alone for a little while. They've done the work on themselves. They're more likely for you to have a healthy relationship with, right? And again, none of it's going to be easy, but that's the work. The work is generally done while single. And then when you're independent and you meet someone else who's independent, you can create synergy between the two of you, where you can create more together than you could have alone. That's the goal here, right? But if you're coming from out of a relationship from a place of lack, this is tough. And as someone who's been single for a long time, I'm also noticing the growth that could occur when you actually do have a partner and a teammate. There is a level of growth that you're just not going to get to on your own. Like, yes, you're going to be able to do things in your own life. You have your hobbies, you have your friends, you have your goals, your purpose, your health, sure. But there's something that's going to come out when you have an intimate relationship with someone you're attracted to. You can't really duplicate that. You can't duplicate that while single. So I think there's a level of growth that occurs eventually when you get with someone else that you can't really achieve on your own. To me, that's the argument for relationships. Now, there's a lot of guys who are MGTOW, for example. They wouldn't really agree with that. They would say things like the juice is worth the squeeze, isn't worth the squeeze, etc. And that's fine. People can do what they want. I'm just saying that there is something to be said for that level of growth. And I respect that, where I think there comes a point where you kind of get, how should I phrase this? Where just being selfish and living for yourself can get old. And you kind of want to go to the next step. So at first, though, the first step is being happy and single and learning how to be independent. And that's like, I was obsessed with that for a long time because I wasn't happy and single. I was codependent. I was coming at relationships from a place of lack. And so I wasn't attracting the best kinds of people. But then once we learn how to be happy and single, then there gets to be a point where maybe we don't want relationships anymore. We just think we're good. And that's where I've been for a while, where I'm just like, I'm just going to do me. I still might want to hook up and have fun occasionally, but I'm just going to do me. But after a while of that, I've come out the other side of it. And I'm like, I do see where there can be some growth and it can be fulfilling to have some sort of relationship. And I think that's the case for it, really, where it gets old just living for you. And there's a level of growth that I think that can occur when you're with somebody else that would be very difficult to achieve on your own. So that's my thoughts on the meme here. Again, there's many different dynamics of it, but ultimately it's take a look at our side of the street, work on ourselves, ask ourselves, why aren't we, if we're not, attracting the kinds of people that we want? That's productive. And if you're going to call out a whole gender, or 50% of a gender, at least have some specifics, right? At least have some specifics where you can actually start a dialogue and you can start talking about it. And again, on a gendered level, on a broad gendered level, how helpful will it really be? I think those conversations are better had on a more individual level because generalizations, they're just generally they can apply. But the thing about them is I always like taking things on a case-by-case basis because things will be different. And what applies to some dudes might not apply to other dudes. What applies to some women might not apply to other women. So individually, I think those conversations are good to be had. Or like maybe say on a group panel between people and they're talking about it, the ins and outs. There's a lot of shows out there that do that. Destiny, Fresh and Fit, many others. They do talk about it. And you may disagree with some of the things they say or agree, but they're having the conversations. And so it is pretty interesting to me. So let me know below what you thought about this video. Do you agree, disagree? Comment your thoughts. Please remember to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you'll know when I come up with more videos. And please share my content with others that you think might benefit. So with that, thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.